Welcome to another edition of the Hampton Leftists Roundtable for the week of August 8th. This week, let's see. Let me turn. There we go. Okay. Welcome to another episode of the Hampton Leftists Roundtable for the week of August 8th. I got a miscue, so you might have heard me talking over that overlay. My apologies. So let's get right into who is on the panel today. We have Nick, Afeni, and Sabby. And we do have Meg here, but she's just in the background producing. I just want to make sure we give her credit for producing. Thank you, Meg. And we might have
live in the hour. I think she's going live in the hour after us, isn't she?
Yes. So she will be on. Yeah, she will.
Yeah, so make sure you guys check out her show after our show is over. Go ahead, CJ, finish up.
Yes, it starts at I think 4 Eastern, if I believe. Yeah, it starts at 4 Eastern. So today on our plate we have the Cuomo resignation, and we also are going to talk a little bit about infrastructure, and then Hampton Leftist Roundtable, wherever it kind of leads. I kind of have a feeling that there is a couple of other topics that's kind of hot on the stove right now that we might address. But again, let's get into the first video. So what I want to do is kind of lay the groundwork on what's happening with the Cuomo story. That's what we're going to start with. Let me share a tweet here. Now, this tweet is from, I believe it's from Democracy Now. Let's see. Yeah, Democracy Now. And it's just, this is a New York state assemblywoman, speaking about Cuomo's resignation. I thought it was a great start for this conversation. And here we go.
I don't believe that it's a shock to us that he also still wants to control the narrative, control the timeline, control everything. Governor Cuomo is still gaslighting New Yorkers. He had his lawyer that the state is actually paying for come out and defend him again on a state platform, basically telling these women that they were imagining it, that they were not harmed by the governor. And then he continued to say things just like the clip that you played, that I didn't know where the line had been redrawn, and all of these different things that continued to basically dismiss the fact that women do know when men are mistreating them. And then at the end, he addressed the legislature and tried to say that it would be costly to the state and painful for the state to proceed with impeachment proceedings because he doesn't want us to actually hold him accountable. Governor Cuomo basically told New Yorkers in his remarks that in exchange for resigning, he'd like the assembly to not impeach him and not investigate his conduct any further. This is gaslighting all New Yorkers. Impeaching him isn't what is costly. Actually, not impeaching him is what is costly.
I thought that was a great start for the conversation. I didn't want to start with the resignation. I mean, because we all saw it. We all know it's kind of bull BS, and we all know that it's pretty much gaslighting. So I kind of wanted to get a different perspective on what is happening on the ground in New York. But let's start the conversation off on just your general thoughts on Cuomo resignation, what it took for him to resign, and any other comments you have about the initial story of Cuomo resigning. I'll start with Afeni, then we'll go to Sabrina and end with Nick. But the question on the table is, what are your thoughts about Cuomo resigning? Afeni. Uh-oh, I think she dropped out. So let's go to Sabrina. Sabrina, what do you think of, the whole story of Cuomo resigning? What are your thoughts?
I feel like he should have resigned in the beginning when the allegations first came out and not wait until Biden said he needed to resign, not wait until his brother, Chris, who was his advisor, tell him that he needed to resign. It's just really sad. It's really pathetic. And I want people to understand too, it's not just about the sexual harassment allegations. It's also about what happened with the nursing home. And I think some people have lost sight of that. Like he should, if anything, he should have stepped down for either one of them, but he should not be there. And I really don't think he should give a 14-day notice. I think they should take him out immediately because obviously this is not someone that's safe for women to be
Right.
around. So why does he get like 14 days? Like, no,
Right.
just take him out now. And
What did he say? Do you know what he said? Why he said he needs 14 days, or did he give a reason? I don't recall.
I guess it was to get his replacement, I forget the woman's name, but the woman that's coming in to step into his place, I guess to get her up to speed, but people can do that without him.
Right.
I mean, we all deal with this at work. Like people leave and then other people have to step.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like
It's not like he does the work. Other people are going to have to show her what's going on anyway. So I get what you're saying.
exactly. So my whole thing is like it's just really bad. It's a conflict of interest for both him and Chris Cuomo. And I brought that up the other night. Like, should Chris Cuomo resign from CNN? Because at that point, like I felt like he is a conflict of interest because his brother had these accusations
Right.
and he's a commentator. I'm pretty sure his brother told him the truth, what happened from the beginning. So what do? Do you protect your family or do you do your job? So right now, Chris is on a vacation. I think we all know what that means. But
Yeah,
with Andrew
it's so weird,
Cuomo-
Sabrina, how these people just randomly take vacations right when some scandal comes out. I remember Tucker Carlson when the writer came out that he was a racist, the writer for his show, and then I'm taking a vacation. It was already pre-planned. Like, okay.
Absolutely. So I just think that he shouldn't have the 14 days. I think he should be removed immediately. But even during his resignation speech, it was really funny to me because he starts listing off all these accomplishments that he had. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. You said you groped women. Goodbye.
Right. Right. We don't care about the other stuff that you're going to list. Yeah. So but now that Afeni is back, I'll kind of state the question. You can kind of comment off of what Sabrina said, or the general question is just, what are your thoughts on Andrew Cuomo resigning?
I mean, I feel like Andrew Cuomo should have resigned back when the nursing home scandal came out. He should have resigned maybe when he was cutting Medicare and Medicaid and a bunch of other social safety nets in New York. Or maybe we should have thought about making him resign when he was enforcing segregation in northern schools up in the city. So
Right.
there are so many different reasons why he should have been pushed out. But for him to just be a creepy white man on top of that, it's kind of just icing on the cake, really, for what a terrible governor he was. And for all of the people that were like basically, worshiping him last year, like, I really want to know, like, where all those people at now? Like, all the homosexuals, where'd you go?
Right. Where are they?
They deleted their tweets so fast.
Like, literally scrub the internet of all the homosexuals. Like, it's crazy. It's just like,
that name always makes me laugh. Just homosexuals. That is ridiculous.
like, the sycophancy should have never really been there. So for a lot of people are kind of trying to frame this as like a fall from grace. He should have never been in anyone's choices to begin with.
Right.
He's always been a terrible person. This clearly, not only is he a terrible person, but he's an abuser, and he should definitely step down immediately. So should Chris Cuomo, because he was helping his brother do comms.
Which
So
is
he should
ridiculous.
also
Yeah.
step down as well. And we cannot continue to let powerful people do these things and be predators and get away with it. Again, I'm an abolitionist. I don't believe in incarceration, but I do believe in transformation and transformative justice. I do believe in holding people accountable and making them, better human beings. So I think that Andrew Cuomo definitely needs some type of, real rewiring for whatever trauma he feels he can just disseminate all over other people. And yeah, like, that's just where I'm at with that.
That's funny you bring up all the Cuomo-sexuals, and we have to define what that is in a minute, but Cuomo-sexuals, because I do have a tweet that I want to share that kind of is a collage of videos of people, mainstream media, fawning over Chris Cuomo. So let's play that.
David, we're standing by for Governor Cuomo's press conference, his daily briefing. How would you contrast Cuomo and President Trump's handling of the crisis?
Truth versus mendacity.
Governor Cuomo out there day after day after day, everything Trump isn't. Honest, direct, brave.
Real leadership of the kind the President of the United States should have provided.
Governor Cuomo is clearly living in a totally different reality, the actual one, than the President of the United States.
Governor Cuomo has become a national leader.
For a lot of people, Andrew Cuomo has become the leader of the Democratic Party.
He is conveying incredible strength.
You spoke to National Guard troops today in a stirring speech that, if I wasn't listening carefully, I thought you were sending soldiers off to war.
This has been a remarkable show of leadership by Governor Cuomo in recent days. He's providing hope, but not false hope.
Governor Cuomo, I think, is one of the heroes on the front lines.
With all of this adulation that you're getting for doing your job, are you thinking about running for president?
Andrew Cuomo, who has a daily television show now and has become in some ways the shadow president.
Maybe Trump is just a little bit mad that Governor Cuomo has become a kind of acting president.
Dealing with hardship actually makes you stronger. That's what Governor Cuomo said earlier today. That's what I'm going to go teach my kids right now at home.
Oh my goodness. Okay. that was excruciating. That was excruciating. But go ahead, Afeni, go ahead.
The fact that all the things that I listed, that he was not immediately blacklisted from the Democratic Party for all of the other reasons that I listed, on top of him being a sexual predator, lets you know what the priority of the Democratic Party is. Right. They were propping this man up, and he was very much Republican with a small d next to his name. And then when it came out, like, I don't know, however many months ago this came out that this investigation was starting, Letitia James came out and said something about this investigation. They still didn't push for his resignation. They still protected this predator because they also know that there's a predator in the White House, and they can't be fucking hypocrites. So it's just like, I know me personally, this is why I will not be giving any more of my points to anybody that runs under the Democratic ticket, because it's just like, y'all do not line up with my values. The fact that you keep propping up predator after predator and actually holding them accountable, the fact that Chris Cuomo can even have the grace of a 14-day 2-week notice, like, what the hell? Like, if you did what he did at your job, they would have fired you and you'd had to leave that day. Like, are you joking?
And the thing is, Afeni, all of that collage of videos, all of that was said knowing what he did in the housing thing, knowing what he did to cut, I think, Medicare for all, or Social Security. I forget what he cut in New York. But basically, I'm saying they were saying pumping him up, knowing a lot of the bad things that he was already doing, a lot of the bad treatment. Like, just because the public is finding out this about Andrew Cuomo, you can best believe those news anchors and those politicians already knew this about Andrew Cuomo. They already heard about this about Andrew Cuomo, and they were praising him even still. So to me, that shows what the Democratic Party, and they're right now begrudgingly saying something about Andrew Cuomo. So that's how I see it. But let's go to Nick. You can comment on Afeni, what I said, what Sabrina said, or a couple of the videos. But what do you think of this whole Cuomo situation so far?
You guys did an amazing job breaking down the situation on a substantive level and breaking down the moral depravity of the Democratic Party for enabling Andrew Cuomo. So it's very important for us to talk about this kind of stuff, because the way we frame these issues are very important. I even watched the media, and obviously what we saw there, and their coverage is missing a very important lesson that we learned about Cuomo. Now, why did I go after, and I'm explaining those lessons right now. Why did I go so hard against Emma Vigeland? Why did I go so hard against Stephen Colbert? Why did I go so hard against Trevor Noah? Because I don't have tolerance, and I don't accept the premise that just because these people are comedians, that they should be able to do state TV for politicians. Now, that video is a great example. I shared another video on my timeline as well, and I covered it on my show. Where you look at the coverage of Andrew Cuomo, and despite that he's a massively corrupt, and he was disaster at handling COVID. So leftists was watching that whole situation, and I'm like, bro, we live in a failed state because I'm literally seeing the media report on something that is the exact opposite. Because we know how horrible Cuomo was on COVID. We knew about his sexual harassment allegations. I'm friends with Lindsey Boy, and on Twitter we talked a few times. Like these things was out while they was doing the propaganda. So how does that feel to how does that feel to a rational mind when you see the gaslighting of this level? Now imagine this same scenario in Russia, China, where a politician that you have their media heads, their highest rated night TV, like praising, saying that he's sexually attractive. He should be replace Trump. You had Chelsea Handler, she was like, yeah, I want to have sex with this guy. It's like there's a conservative propaganda push in the most disgusting way. How is that any different from the state TV that Americans already complain about in other countries? If we've seen that in other countries, we will lose our mind. Right. Now, I asked people for screenshots, and that thread was hilarious, of the liberals who was tweeting about Cuomo's sexuality and how much they loved Andrew Cuomo. And then and this is the point I made. This is not me being petty. It's fun, but this has a very important point. Because you notice that liberals never learned their lesson, right? They're liberals now who's trying to save face. Oh man, we gotta stand up to Cuomo, man. He's a bully. He's a piece of it. They trying to save face. The left was telling you guys this, and then while we was bashing Cuomo, you guys were calling us divisive Trumpers. I remember. I was in the dialogue at the time. The liberals got mad at me for calling out Cuomo instead of listening to the left. So are they gonna learn their lesson? Are they gonna actually learn the lesson of, hey, maybe what the left is saying about our politician that we like, maybe they have some validity to it? No, they said, oh, you guys are just toxic Trumpers. Oh, you guys want to help Trump win. I remember that was their defense of them. So my question is, why am I being petty? Why am I bringing up their old tweets? Why did I bring up Emma Vigilance saying, oh, Andrew Cuomo should take over Joe Biden as a nominee? The queen of shit lib takes. Why am I going after them? Because are you guys learning your lesson? No. So remember, who is leftists warning people about? Joe Biden. Ben Dixon's on his radio show. Oh my God, I can't believe I've helped this guy get elected. Hey, I wonder what black leftists was warning you guys.
He said that, Nick? He said that?
On his morning show.
What?
Now people are starting to turn, because now people with Trump derangement syndrome is starting to fade away, because Trump derangement syndrome broke the brains of progressives. Well, they forgot who Jim Crow Joe was. So now we are months removed of Trump being in power. He's not the titan figure that he once was. He's starting to fade away from public consciousness. So now that Trump derangement syndrome is starting to wear down a little bit, and now since that's fading, people are looking at what's going on with the expansion of ICE. You had the police that literally kicking homeless people out, aiming ARs in their face at them while they're doing it. They are completely ignoring the climate crisis, despite the new report that came out. You know what I mean? So now even people who was more liberal minded, even they can acknowledge, like, bro, maybe this, damn, I can't believe we actually thought we were gonna push it to the left. So my point is, are you guys gonna learn your lesson? It doesn't seem like it, because we warned you guys. I warned you guys about Biden. We warned you guys about Cuomo. How many times we got to warn you guys? They don't have the decency to even say that we were right.
I don't think they will learn their lesson, Nick. And I'm going to share this tweet. It's on the same topic with everyone. And we'll comment on the other end. But it's Mr. Hassan. I'm sure all of you have seen his take on the Cuomo. But if you haven't, this is going to be a nice little treat for you. Just hold on to whatever hold on. Try not to throw up from what this guy is about to say to all of us. So here is, I always get his name mixed up. That's why I call him Mr. Hassan. So here's Mr. Hassan's take on the whole Cuomo situation.
One rather important lesson from today's shock resignation from Andrew Cuomo is the fact that the Democratic Party is still willing to take action against alleged offenders in its midst, unlike, wait for it, the other great political party in this country. I mean, Republicans have been all over the Andrew Cuomo story, but have they looked in the mirror recently? Just take former Missouri Republican Governor Eric Greitens, who resigned in 2018 amidst an ethics probe, 2 criminal charges, reports he had an affair, and allegations of blackmail. He's now running again, this time for the Senate, and is the likely front runner to replace retiring GOP Senator Roy Blunt. There's Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, who's faced multiple allegations that he turned a blind eye to sexual abuse by the Ohio State wrestling team physician, while Jordan was the assistant coach. And yet Republicans continue to stand by him, even choosing him to be their ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee. We have even seen this on the Supreme Court. Clarence Thomas was confirmed despite Anita Hill's accusation of sexual harassment. So was Brett Kavanaugh more recently after Christine Blasey Ford's accusation of sexual assault. Not a single Republican voted no on Kavanaugh's confirmation. Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida is currently under investigation by the Department of Justice over whether he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl and paid for her to travel with him. Only one of his Republican colleagues, Congressman Adam Kinzinger, has called on him to resign, and Gaetz remains in office and on his committees. And then, of course, just look at the former president who led an insurrection, was impeached twice, and has been accused of sexual misconduct by more than 24 women. Republicans as a whole have never tried to hold him accountable for any of that. He remains the de facto leader of the party and their likely presidential candidate in 2024. Now, Donald Trump and all these other Republican men have denied everything and refused to acknowledge the validity of any of the allegations against them. They deny, and continue to have a future in their party. So yes, today is a sad day for the Democratic Party. One of their stars, a man they were considering as a presidential candidate just a year ago, resigned in disgrace. But you could say it's a sadder day for American democracy because it's a reminder that there are only consequences. There is only accountability for Democrats in our system, not for Republicans.
Yeah. that last line right there just took it over the edge. And I'm going to just do a couple of comments before I pass it around. Why is it a need to point out somebody else's wrongdoings when somebody on your team is doing something wrong? That's so weird. Like, that was a Cuomo story, but 90% of that was about other people other than Cuomo. So he took this time to say, let me talk about other people who's doing it, so that in comparison, you'll see just Cuomo is not as bad as all of these Republicans. And then what I thought was very ironic is that he pointed out Clarence Thomas when Joe Biden is responsible for Clarence Thomas for being on the Supreme Court. Like, how does Mr. Hassan miss that? Like, he should have said, the editor been like, hey, let's take Clarence out. Let's not put him in here. Like, how do you miss that? And then in the end, when he says, of course, Donald Trump, you could literally have put Joe Biden, replaced him with Donald Trump and said, and then there's, of course, Joe Biden. So that's what my thoughts were first seeing what he said. But we're going to start with Afeni this time. We'll go to Nick and then go to Sabrina. Afeni, your expression said it all, but I'm going to let you say it with your own words. What was your reaction, or what do you think of this take from Mr. Hassan about the Democrats hold their people responsible?
I mean, you really took the words out of my mouth with Clarence Thomas. Like, honestly, you can't be serious. Like, people that watch the mainstream media are usually older people, you know, people that are around like the 30s and 40s up in there. Them motherfuckers was alive back then. So they saw you. Like, did you know that they can see you participating in this? And it's like, on top of that, it's just like the hypocrisy is it's just so unreal, because when everybody was screaming to the rooftops about how Joe Biden is a sexual predator, Joe Biden is an abuser, you talk about the Clintons. Mm-hmm. abusers, sexual predators. But those people are still exalted within the Democratic Party. Those people are still upheld by the Democratic Party. And the same man that is not only is a sexual predator himself, is responsible for one of the Republican sexual predators that are on the Supreme Court. You can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
America.
I thought that was just ridiculous. And the thing is, why it was so ironic to me is because Hassan, didn't he say he believed Tara Reid? Wasn't he one of the people that was saying it at the time? If I recall, maybe I'm recalling it wrong. So that was really that he brought up. Like, it was just really ironic that he's saying that they're taking responsibility.
His
really?
contract,
Is he take? Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
His contract makes it so he has to have amnesia on all his previous left-wing positions. I've never been a giant fan of Hassan, but I never really hated him. He just wasn't someone who was particularly left enough for me. But as soon as he was signed on MSNBC, the most predictable transformation of all time. And now there's rumors that Ben Dixon didn't get his MSNBC position. That's why he's now more willing to criticize Democrats again.
Oh,
and to
wow.
be once again, this is word of mouth, so I apologize if I got that wrong. But I got people that feed me information. Let's just say that. Now to back to Hassan. And this is a very interesting thing. Finney and you laid out very important things. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just reframe it. Look at how he frames the problem. He frames the problem in a way that favors the oligarchy, where it's like, oh, woe is the Democrats, woe is me. Now, this is just a completely different way of thinking of someone who is anti-establishment. I don't know, that drilled into him. Maybe he knows the left critique and he's smart enough to know how he got to act as a neoliberal commentator. But you know what? The first thing that came to my mind, and I remember I had the K-Hive, I had the liberals on Twitter, was heated because I had to call it what it is. This is a culture of depravity. You know, he said, why do Democrats only get in charge? That should not even be anywhere near this conversation.
Right.
What should be in this conversation is why is you have the powerful white men that climb in Democratic Party politics, become influential figures in Democratic Party politics, and they get away with it as long as they do until public pressure is too much. Because he got away with it until public pressure was too much. So it wasn't like the neoliberal Democrats turned on him because they had a moral change of heart. Right. They changed on him. They were like, damn, he's hurting us. So he got a phone call. I would love to hear what that phone call was like. You know, maybe from the CIA, maybe from Barack Obama. Who knows? We only can speculate. I think it's kind of fun to do that. But they forced him out because it only hurt their politics. It wasn't a moral dilemma. So my critique, and with the critique of anyone who is anti-establishment will have, is what is it about the elite Democratic Party elite? And you can say Republican too, but like, let's focus on the topic at hand.
Right.
Because Harvey Weinstein was good friends with the Obama, to the point where Obama daughters even interned with Harvey Weinstein. And you tell me what Obama and all his connections. Once again, I get fed information, and I'm 1/10,000th of millions of the influence Obama is. Imagine all the information that is fed through his chambers. Once again, now you think he haven't heard any rumors, but he's like, nah, he's cool, bro, because he donates to my campaign. What is that? What is that you know what Bill Clinton did, but like, oh, he powerful, so we gotta let him slide. He just talked at the Democratic Party convention. So what? So his thing was like, oh, woe is me, Democrats get caught, which is not true. So you guys already debunked that. So the next analysis I have is, why is it not the analysis on the culture of the elites that Hassan is
right?
You know, if you don't talk about that, you know why? The contract. He's not allowed to criticize the actual culture of the people that sign his paychecks. When I say that, we gotta realize it's a giant club. The same people who run ads on MSNBC are the same people who donate to these campaigns. That's why they zip it up. They're not allowed to say. They can talk about these issues. Even this issue, they're like, oh my God, they're talking about Andrew Cuomo. Even when they talk about it, it's within a neoliberal Democratic Party lens in which they only allowed to discuss that. I'll pass it back to you, CJ, but that's the analysis I want to add to that.
No, those are some great points. And when you were saying that, what a point that stood out to me is that this is part of the frustration with leftist figures, public figures, is that they say all the great things and people start following them on Twitter. Yeah, Hassan. I remember Hassan, and John Cusack is another one to me that kind of fits in the same He'll say some good things, but then he'll say some just awful stuff. It's like, how did you even say that good thing before? Because this is really awful. So I just think that
I just want to say Jonathan 100% right there.
what do you say?
He said sacrificing Cuomo with the lesser of
Exactly.
That's a great take because that's exactly what it is. Back to you, CJ.
But that's the case with anytime when they say, okay, go ahead, resign, that means they've made a calculation that, hey, we need to give him up, let him go for the good of the corrupt party. Like, he's going to take all of us down. So let's go ahead and get rid of him, cut ties with him. But they'll find a way to really rehabilitate him. And in 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if he's running for something else again. You know, he'll do a couple of PSAs about sexual, assault or something like that. And then he'll be back into the good graces, because power like that, just doesn't go away. The relationships he recreated and the connections he's has as governor, what kind of connections he's talking about billionaires of New York. So you're talking about international billionaires. It's no way this guy is leaving he's not leaving from the landscape, I don't think. So let's go to Sabrina. Sabrina, what is your take on Mr. Hassan's take?
I just think it's funny because, Joe Biden was the one that prevented Anita Hill's witnesses from testifying against Clarence Thomas. And Anita Hill had evidence against Clarence Thomas. And so he shut her down. That's why he came back and tried to apologize to her last year when he was running, because he knew, even The View, they were bringing that back up on The View. So I just thought it was really, really interesting. Yeah, I get what he's trying to say, that Republicans are doing this too. But let's be clear here, because let's go back to the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. And let's remember Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar. Let's remember how outraged they were with Brett Kavanaugh. Cory Booker was so over dramatic when he was talking about Brett Kavanaugh, but none of them brought that same energy when it was someone on their team. When it was Andrew Cuomo, all of a sudden it was just like, oh, well, I hope he does the right thing. They did not have that same fire. They did not have that same passion. They did not have that same energy. And it just goes to show the hypocrisy when it's someone that is on your team. And this is why I tell people, Democrats, Republican, it doesn't matter. They're all on the same team. They're all protecting elitism. They're all protecting corporations. And at the end of the day, even though they're two different parties, they still protect and back each other. And one thing I want to say about Andrew Cuomo, when you mentioned he still will have power when he steps down, I want to remind everybody that even their father was in politics.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes way back, man. This goes way back. And someone brought this up the other night, that a lot of people that are in these powerful commentator positions on mainstream media also come from elite backgrounds. Anderson Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
His mom was Gloria Vanderbilt. Chris Cuomo, like I said, his dad was a politician. Meghan McCain, we all know her dad was John McCain. So all of these people run in the same circles together, and we just can't get confused by the fact that the letter in front of their name may be different.
Absolutely.
That's such an important point. And
go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
That's such an important point, because one of the main things I want to focus on, and I tell people, they have to focus on politics in the lens of the class war. And this is actually very well planned. And this is actually how they designed the neoliberal capitalist government, where you only have members of the ruling class who gets in the media, and they are friends with the politicians, their cousins, their aunts, and they get into Harvard, they get into Yale, and then they get the CNN broadcast position, they get an MSNBC position. And that's why what we're doing is so important, because my take has always been, everyone can be a citizen journalist. I don't care what your bloodline is. I don't care what your education level is. If you have an important message to share, you can share it. But their consensus is you got to come from some sort of elite education. You got to come from this prestigious bloodline. And this is actually the class control a flow of information. So why do you think we get neoliberal propaganda? Why do you think we get people who always repeat the Democratic Party talking points? Once again, just a basic concept of manufacturing consent. These people are put in power for a very particular reason. And there was actually a study that was done that was shocking, that shows that if you look at the education level of the people in media, it's higher than the people who are senators and Congress people.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the highest educated people in society. So what does that mean? In a nutshell, the socialist take on this, the flow of information is being controlled by the top 1%. It's not poor people that feeding you messages on CNN. It's not poor people that writing stories for the Hill. That's why you get stories like Joe Biden shifting to the left is actually hurting his polling. That story is written because it was rich people in those positions.
Mm-hmm.
and that's by design. I just want to bring up. I'm glad Sabrina brought that up because that's such an important point. I'll pass it back to CJ.
No, that is such an important point, and I do want to give everybody the opportunity before we move on to the next subject. If you had any last words on this topic, nobody? Okay. So in the beginning, I said infrastructure, and we will try to get to that. And I also said in the beginning, I have a feeling we're going to talk about something, and this is what's coming to me. So I'm going to go ahead and go with it. I feel like we need to address further the divide on the left. And I thought of that because of the four of us that are on here, the perspectives I want to get from the four of us. I think I want to uniquely hear what the four of us have to say on it. Because we're planning to go on to another podcaster show to talk about the subject of the divide on the left and how to move forward. That's kind of the topic that we're going to be going. I don't want to announce what show until that person announces it themselves. I don't want to break it just in case they're saving it. So we're going to be doing that. I think it's me, Nick, and Afeni will be going on to that show. So I kind of wanted to address that and talk about that a little more because for the left to move forward in any sort of movement or revolution or any sort of solidarity, I feel like that's a big thing that's hanging over our head that needs to be sort of talked about. So there's kind of that is the big thing. And then without bringing up a particular person's name, there are some attacks that have been leveled against FHL. And I don't want to give that person any sort of respect or acknowledgement. So I don't want to necessarily say their name, but maybe, address it in a cordial way. So that's another thing I kind of wanted to address. Again, I don't want to make this like a big, we're all on the same side. I just don't want to make it crazy. I want it to be more intellectual, a conversation about the topic. So I'll pass it to Nick. Go ahead, Nick. I'll let you start.
Yeah, I think you wrote it. Maybe RJ wrote it. I'm sorry if I get the credit wrong, but I think some people should go to Hampton Leftists, our Twitter page, and read our pinned, where we're essentially saying I'm not about the nonsense, not about the drama. I'm about the issues. I'm about the policy. And there are a lot of people who want to make it not about that. And I'm like, you're either right on the issues or you're wrong on the issues. And if you don't want to talk about the issues, I'm not really interested. And a lot of these people are talking about the issues and they're just getting it wrong. They're just getting it wrong. And that's the only time you really see me even talk about people and like, all right, we're just talking about the issues. Like I talk about Vosh, I'm like, it's just about the issues. Like you're just wrong on foreign policy. You're just wrong on reparations. Like these are things that we got to talk about. But when you have people that they're screaming on top of their head, just yelling at people and denying the content of their color, saying, "Oh, you're a white girl." You know what I mean? How does that have value in conversation between Black people who's supposed to be in community with each other? And how am I supposed to take that seriously? How am I supposed to respond with any sort of respect? Because I know if I have any disagreements with people in my community, we're gonna just talk it out. Instead, we're not gonna make diss tracks. You know what I mean? What is that? You trying to be Tupac or something? Like I don't fucking get it. Like
diss tweets.
Yeah. So I was like, my whole thing. People are like, why are you not talking about this? Why are you not addressing this? I'm like, bro, I'm about building this coalition. I'm about covering the story. I didn't get my followers because I'm thirsty for clout. And a lot of people, they're just thirsty for clout. They may not get as many views as they used to do. You know what I mean? So they got to do all these other things that are deeply unserious at the end of the day. Like we got Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, expanding the police state, and they're crying about the feelings of politicians. Because let's go at the root of it. The root of the divide are these people are mad because we are not nice enough to their favorite politicians. That's where this whole thing started. And when I look at my criticisms, when I look at the heart of 90% of my criticisms, it must be because, oh, you mean to the squad, you mean to Bernie Sanders, you mean to Tina Turner. Mm-hmm. That's the only divide. The divide is not, oh my God, I can't believe you support this politician who is actually expanding the police state, which a lot of progressives have done. They sold us out to the police state. They're not supporting reparations.
I think, Nick, let me ask you this.
Bernie Sanders, once I addressed that, CJ, but Bernie Sanders voted for the bill that's a fascist government takeover where they want to punish local governments. Bernie voted for that. So if you defending Bernie over my criticism, that means you chose your side. You chose the police state. So that's not me being a drama queen for saying that you abandoned us in our movement by selling us out to the police state. That's me calling it out how it is. But you just people are going on tirades where they're just not saying anything of substance. They're just dropping diss tracks trying to be funny. They're trying to get viral. Hey, yo, get the Vaseline up. There's no substance here. But CJ, what are you about to say?
No, now I think I lost what I was gonna say about
my bad, bro.
Because that last joke you made kind of threw me.
That's political commentators saying stuff like that, and people taking them seriously. Like you see what we cover off FHL. I just had Dr. Kareem Batesh and Dr. Peter Dostron on my show, and we talk about the decolonizing your mind. We had a 2-hour foreign policy conversation, hard hitting. That doesn't get clicks and views. I acknowledge that. That doesn't get clicks and views. That's not super clickbaitable, but that's how we want to grow. That's why I'm super glad we almost had 8,000 subscribers. Mm-hmm. At the beginning of this month, I was like, yo, we hit 8,000 at the beginning of this month. That'd be crazy. We had the 12, we almost at 8,000. I'm thrilled on that because the way we're doing it. You know what I mean? Do
you think that has something to do with some of the people that's leveling attacks? They're seeing that kind of like, FHL. And the thing is, Nick, we've only been doing this for 4 months. It feels like we've been doing this for a long time. We've only been doing this since April 1st. That was our official launch.
And people know me. Like a lot of people like oh, he ain't about fucking doing anything. I was just some guy who had my phone, quit my job, and I was canvassing for Bernie. And then I got popular or whatever. And I'm like, I didn't chase that. But there are people who chase that, who see that and like, what the fuck this motherfucker who the fuck you think he is? Like starting a network. Who the fuck does he think he think he's a shit because he got 60,000 followers?
Like it almost feels like you're imitating. You're doing an impression. You're doing an impression, Nick. Was that an impression? It felt like it.
But I'm just saying that it's like that's where most of it come from. Because like you gotta see what I cover. You gotta see what I'm talking about. I have hatred for Joe Biden, the police state, and the Democratic Party, and billionaires. Why do you guys have hatred over podcasters?
Right.
like I remember that person she put a tweet up, and she was like, "If you don't support Tim Black, if you like Jimmy Dore, unfollow me, unblock me." I'm like, you guys drawing the line on the sand over podcasters, bro.
Yeah, that is so ridiculous.
And now, once again, and this is something I noticed. Whenever I see these people who do this, whenever I see the people who just focus on nothing but podcasters and they talk about nothing but Jimmy Dore and all this kind of stuff, it just so happened that they'd be like, yeah, I'm more privileged. I got help. They got health care. I look at the profile. It's usually like an older white lady or older white person. You know what I mean? When it's us, like younger black activists, people like a Finney, people like a Sabby, people like Ron, you think we're not focusing on that because we're trying to survive.
Right.
I don't care what Jimmy Dore is talking about. I don't care what anyone's talking about.
And I think, Nick, that kind of goes to the divide. It's that they don't have anything else to worry about. So they're worrying about you critiquing their politicians. You get what I'm saying? Like there's nothing else urgent to them.
Yeah, one more thing that's important to that point I passed to you, Sis. I'm sorry I keep interrupting.
No, go ahead.
But you know how we have our panels, there are 2 hours, and then we go over, and then sometimes we like, bro, we don't even have nothing to talk about. Like when it comes to talking about capitalism, the class war, the foreign policy, the racism in our system, and when I outline and when I'm trying to create shows, like, bro, I don't know how am I supposed to fit all this stuff in the show. The world is crazy right now. Everything, like I can't cover all the stuff I want to cover. Meanwhile, these people, look what they talking about. You got time for this?
That's what I'm saying.
I can't believe they even have time to talk about some of the stuff they talk about. With it. Like, oh, I'm gonna make a call out video, bro. People are gonna be like, bro, you killed that guy, man. You really showed them. Like, bro, you don't got anything else to talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about this climate change report. How about let's knock that out? Let's knock that conversation out instead of this.
I talked enough.
Instead of this other stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Sabrina this time. If you want to comment on anything that Nick said, or the main topic is kind of like just addressing any sort of FHL, stones being thrown our way, if you want to. And then the broader point is the left divide. And how we're going to be going on the show on Monday. The focus of that show is there a way to bridge the gap? So I want to add that to the pot. Is there a way to bridge this divide? Is there a way? So I'll throw that out. I'll add that in for you, Sabrina. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I think like when I look at what we're doing at FHL, I mean, we're a group of activists and organizers, right? So Affinity is doing mutual aid in DC. That's why sometimes you'll see us retweet that. You got Rome like doing a tour for the poor, going across the country. Sometimes you'll see us retweet that. A lot of us participated in the marches for Medicare for All. And I can tell you the group that I worked with here in Boston, we are already moving forward with next steps because we have a Medicare for All bill in the House that they won't bring it to the floor to vote on it because of one person is preventing that. So we're already working on next steps for that. So a lot of you may hear me say this on my show often. I don't like to just talk about the problems. I like to talk about possible solutions and what we can do to make these things work. And what I don't think is going to happen, the attacks that are happening, podcaster versus podcaster, that's not bringing us any solutions. And I'm thinking about all the people that are going to be homeless in 60 days. And we are going into winter in Massachusetts, and we don't have enough homeless shelters for everybody. We just don't. That's the reality, which means people will be outside. Some people may have to sleep in their car in the winter. These are the realities. These are everyday realities that we are dealing with. I know that Meg and I both work in education. You guys can't see Meg, but I can see her. Hi, Meg. She's backstage. Meg and I both work in education. We're going to be doing a show soon about the inequities in education and the things that we've experienced as educators and possible solutions. So for me, it is not about what color someone is. It is not about how many subscribers you have. It is not about if you're new or if you've been doing this for a long time. What I am looking for is, are you going to bring about possible solutions? And what I see happening right now with all this back and forth and tit for tat, that is not resolving anything. And it's just dividing everybody further and further. And none of us are perfect, right? Mm-hmm. But we grow and we learn. We haven't been doing this long. Like I did work in journalism before when I was in college. I majored in broadcast journalism. So I have TV experience. But in terms of like our podcast, like we haven't been doing this for a long time. Like we've made some mistakes. I think what's important is that you grow and you learn from them. So when you see people make these attacks about us, my advice to you is just ignore it. Don't feed into it, because when you feed into it, that's what they want you to do. Mm-hmm. You can't fall for it. Just let it go. People have said a lot of things about me. Someone made a whole video about me saying that I was racist because I did an intersectionality video with 4 other Black women talking about our experiences being Black women. That made us racist. And like I didn't even comment on that video. Didn't even comment on it. You can't feed into that stuff. That's what they want you to do. And that just makes them, oh, let me keep doing this. Let me keep doing these call outs and let me get just don't feed into that stuff. I'm focusing on solutions and how we can move forward and how I can help people, especially here locally, and how we can help each other. That's why you'll see us retweet things that other people, other FHO members are doing, like in their area, to try to help. Quaker Socialist, who's in the chat right now, has been a huge help in terms of getting mutual aid out to people and how we can help people in their local communities, has been a huge activist and help. And that is what we need to happen. And I'm going to tell you right now, regardless of who we have in office, if we can't help the people who need help right now in our communities, it does not matter who we put in office. Mm-hmm. So that is my thing. There is a certain sense of urgency. A lot of us have student loan debt. We already know what's coming around in January, right? So I've watched people at my job get laid off who still can't find jobs. My job isn't safe. I don't know what's going to happen. So the thing is these, for some of us, these are everyday realities. And what should not happen is those of us who are in these same situations, we should, instead of arguing and fighting with each other, we should have been working together. So for me, it's not about this who's right, who's wrong, beefs and all this kind of stuff. And no, I'm not perfect, but I grow and I learn from my mistakes. And if all of us could do that, then that could help with the divide on the left. But you're not going to get anywhere fixing the divide on the left if you don't acknowledge the fact that there is a class issue, there is a class divide. And like Nick has talked about this multiple times, some people can't wait for another person to get elected. Some people need housing security now. Some people need to have health care now. I know people right now that have expensive medical bills. They don't have the money to pay it. They've been laid off. So some of us can't wait to get another
Sabrina, can that gap be bridged? Can the gap between those who believe we can't wait and those who say let's wait for the next election? That's essentially the question I'm asking. Can that gap be bridged? Because that's essentially the difference. Like, we're critiquing the people they love because they're not doing enough. The urgency level is not up high enough. And these people have health care. These people are living good. They have a living wage. So, you know what I mean? They can't artificially turn their urgency up when their life doesn't require that. So how does that gap be filled? You were going to say something, Nick? Go ahead.
Yeah, not long, but and I mentioned before, there's not much of a divide on the real left. And people get mad at me when I say that, but I ask people, what is the root cause of all these divides? And that's based on what your question is. And the root cause of this is politicians. Think back at every single beef, it has something to do with some guy mad because they criticize a politician that this person likes, so he dissed this person because he disagreed with his strategy. That's all it comes down to. So if we just all had the mindset of stop worshiping politicians, that would solve a lot of our problems. Because the whole force to vote thing was a big drama because people were trying to protect AOC, and they was mad.
But Nick, that's a big thing for liberals.
People got mad at Rome, and people got mad at Rome because at the Medicare for All marches, the crowd chanted shame at AOC, and I'm like, why is that even the thing you get mad at? You know what I mean? Like,
I remember that.
So it's like that's where the root of the drama comes. And now this is the deeper analysis, and I'll pass it back to you. Absolutely. The deeper analysis to this, and this is what makes people so mad because we be doing our own thing. Then they get mad at us because they hear what we say that they don't like about politicians. So the thing is, once they hear our message and they lash out in anger because the implication of what we are saying shatters their worldview. Once again, them being privileged, so they have to rely on politicians. So if what I am saying is true, that we can't rely on politicians, that means they have to reach the net conclusion they are not comfortable with. That we are on our own. Capitalism has failed us. We need to start looking at strategies post-electoral politics in order to survive. And then literally just sharing that message will give you the bourgeoisie left. Like, are you saying that we shouldn't focus on elections? Bro, the people that go homeless right now, electoral politics did not save them. You know what I mean? There are people that slipped through the cracks of the eviction moratorium. There's people that they would say, "Oh, all you gotta do is just trust in Justice Democrats." How many people went homeless from the time that Biden formed his progressive task force to now? So imagine if you one of them people like, "All I gotta do is just trust the squad. All I gotta do is trust politicians," and then you go homeless. What's worse than that? What worse than that? That means their ideology failed you. Now, what we tell you is like, bro, that can be a part of your focus, but we need to start focusing on surviving this post-capitalist police state hellscape, because the chance of it and surviving climate change as well, because we long past just straight up change these things before people die, and they don't even want to focus on that part. They don't even want to have these conversations how we survive instead of this is what they say. This is what ALC, and then I'll pass it to you, CJ. Sorry, I'll pass it right back to you. They were like, ALC was like, you know, when my kid I want them to have Medicare for all in 20 years. If that's your position, we're not on the same side. I don't have 20 years. And then they get mad at us for pointing that out. Anyway, I'll pass it back to you.
No, let's go to Afeni, because let's bring the facts and fire to this conversation. What is your take? You can go off of what, the conversation, how it's changed, or the initial question about just addressing some of the attacks, and then this divide. Is it bridgeable? Can we bridge this divide between those who don't have the same urgency when we're not on the same urgency level? Afeni.
I think that a lot of people need to understand the difference between being in community and being in coalition. Regardless of whether we're in community with each other, you need to respect me, though. Period. We may not agree with everything. We may not see the same, path forward. But if you are in coalition with me, you need to respect me. And one thing that I've really realized about the leftist community is there is no respect here. There is no real respect here unless people feel like you have some access so they can use you for something. And at the end of the day, that's still a capitalist mindset. So you need to decolonize your mind. If you only fuck with people based off of what they can and cannot do for you, or what they can and cannot provide you, then you are not really you're not really decolonizing your mind. You're not really a socialist, because people's value is outside of that. And it's just so disgusting that there are so many people that are on the so-called left that truly do not understand that. That's number one. And also, being community with people, that means that we have to build a sense of collective trust. So if we are not collectively trusting each other, how the hell are we going to have a revolution? How are we going to build that infrastructure outside of the government that in which we can have those economic boycotts, in which we can have those mass strikes, in which we can have a real solid community plan for mutual aid, like a collective safety, a real sustainable collective safety? How do we create that if we can't even respect each other enough to honestly slide in the DMs about a lot of the shit that y'all talking about on the TL? Because I can promise you right now, you do not see me arguing on my timeline for anything other than policy. If this is not a good faith argument, then I'm not about to engage with you. If you're just trying to disseminate negativity, then you are not a leftist, period. Like there are ways to have critiques. There are ways to disagree. There are ways to have these conversations and have that path forward, because all of this growth that we are asking for comes from uncomfortable conversations. It comes from brave spaces. It comes from radical love and radical understanding. And those conversations are not always easy, but for y'all to just automatically skip all of that, to go straight to bad faith attacks, to defend politicians that are not even in your class, y'all got to be joking me. Y'all have got to be joking me. It can't work like this. And for you to fucking conflate anybody that does not agree with you to automatically being a Jimmy Dore fan it's just so belittling to our principles and to our policies and to our politics, because at the end of the day, my politics is my practice is my principle. And if I truly believe that, whether Jimmy Dore existed or not, I would disagree with a lot of the shit that is happening right now, period. So for y'all to sit up here and just belittle all of the work that leftists do on a day-to-day basis, trying to really challenge the nucleus of the power of this system, which is the financial power, and for y'all to sit up here and do this weird divisive foolishness because y'all don't want to give up your privilege and you're just not ready to admit that, I don't have any chat for you. I don't have any chat for you. For real. And that's just really the situation. Like, leftists, it's crazy because leftists are real optimists. Like, we are really optimists because we see all of these broken, damaged, traumatized Americans, and we still imagine a better world that is based in collective safety and anti-racism and community trust. But y'all can keep trying to do shit like this, and you're going to keep derailing the plan, period. Like, that's like, we're never going to get there if y'all don't know how to be respectful. And that's just the reality of the situation.
I think, Afeni, what you're saying answers the question on whether or not there could be a coalition between those who have and have not on the left? I'm not sure there can be. I'm not sure, because when you're saying things like mutual aid, what do they need mutual aid for? So that's not a priority. You get what I'm saying? That's not a priority to a person who is well off. Like, that's not, what do you mean? That's a step down. You get what I'm saying? That's a step down for them. So what's the likelihood of them even helping in that? So I think we have to understand that there's levels to leftism, and we just take people for their word when they say I'm a leftist. And I think we have fewer leftists than we think. I think Nick said something like this before. I remember him saying something. We have fewer leftists than we think, and we have liberals aspiring to be leftists. We have liberals who know liberalism is kind of bad, so they want to aspire to be leftists, but they still have these liberal views like not really doing anything to get anything done. You get what I'm saying? So when they see real leftists saying, hey, let's hit the streets, they're like, oh my, you know what I'm saying? Like, hit the streets? I'm not hitting no damn streets. I'm about to go over here and get this latte. What you talking about? You get what I'm saying? But you see, like, are we really, it's almost like we're trying to put this square into this round hole. Like, does it really fit? Like, I get teaming up with you on certain things, but I'm talking about, when we're talking about revolution, you really think they about to hit the streets? I don't think so. And I'm gonna pass it back to the table. I heard you, Nick, speaking. So Nick, let's bring you back into the conversation. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I just want to back up what you said, because I made the point before, because Bernie Sanders was a massive movement. I mean, millions of people. It was about around 40% of the Democratic Party electorate. That's a lot of people. I mean, now when you break it down, like, are these people leftists? It's clear that there really wasn't at the end of the day, because when you look at leftism, and what really differentiates ourselves from liberals is our class analysis and our power dynamic analysis as well. So and I notice this, and I'm not saying this for no reason, because I see them get very important issues wrong. Like, I see them be weak on foreign policy, for example. I see them be weak on the national security state. I see these same people push Russiagate. So if you do stuff like that, you don't even understand the power dynamics and the structure in which we're supposed to be resisting. When I see Bernie Sanders voting for giant police budgets, when I see progressives voting to police state, that's one giant part of the analysis they are missing. Because as a leftist, I'm saying capitalism is complicit with the prison industrial complex, because the prison industrial complex is slavery. That's not even a complex leftist position. But that's a lot of people on the United States left haven't even reached that. They're like, well, we can't really defund the police. That's ridiculous. Like, what? That's crazy. If you don't believe that, are you really a leftist? Because you're still supporting giant oppressive states that are designed to implement forced labor. If you're apologizing for the Democratic Party, if you're apologizing for Joe Biden and they implemented the prison slave labor and ICE slave labor camps, how is that not part of your analysis of the situation? If that's not part of your analysis, are you really a leftist, or are you a liberal that want health care? Are you a liberal that want $15 minimum wage? You're a liberal that wanted to cancel your student loan debt because you're like, we can means test it. That means you like, at the end of the day, you want your shit canceled. That's not a leftist position. I'll pass it back to the panel, but
I think that's
the other critique.
You just articulated what I was saying, that I think there's just people who are Democrats and who are liberals who aspire, who like some of the ideas of leftism. So they say, because I like those, I'm a leftist. They're not really. I couldn't hear.
That's the best faith conclusion, because a lot of people would say they co-opting on purpose to water it down.
They could be doing that, and that's what Democrats do.
It's actually best case is like, they're just not educated enough to be leftists. But honestly, a lot of it just people co-opting. But sorry, I passed it to.
No, I was going to pass it to. I couldn't hear which one of the of our ladies were speaking. Sabrina, let's go to Sabrina. What were your thoughts, or what were you going to say about it?
I was just going to add that, like, as the audience, you guys see what happens on camera. You guys don't get to see what happens behind the scenes. A lot of times when you see us bring on guests, or when we go on other people's shows, a lot of times those things are scheduled way in advance. I know Nick knows this, because Nick books a lot of like the big guests. So that is something I want you to keep in mind. a lot of times things are scheduled way in advance. Sometimes things change. Sometimes topics change. So sometimes when you see us go on someone's show, sometimes, yes, there is a topic that is set and we are aware of that. But sometimes when you see us go on someone's show, it's not. Things change. Sometimes things change last minute. So that is something I wanted to make people aware of. But I can tell you behind the scenes, we work especially hard. I mean, like I work, I have a regular job. Meg has a regular job. CJ has we work like regular jobs and we do this as well. And we work our asses off, you guys. And so sometimes when that happens, and we did grow pretty quickly. I'm looking back on this, like FHL launched April. FHL did grow rather quickly. But what I want people to understand, if people wonder, well, how did you interview this person? And how did I interview Marianne Williamson? There are things that go on behind the scenes sometimes that you may not see. And sometimes it's because we already have experience. Maybe we just got lucky. Maybe it's just, you know what I mean? Like, you guys know what I'm talking about. So it's not always as clear as you think it is when you see it on the screen, when you see it on camera. But I work a full-time job, and I do like FHL, and I do my own podcast. Like, I'm a busy person, and activism and organizing, all of these things. So I believe like the reason why all of us got into this is because we wanted to create change. We wanted to make a difference, not because we want to be like, spotlight famous or anything like that. That's not why we got into this. And then there are those that did get into it for that reason. Mm-hmm. And if that's what they want to do, that's their thing. That's on them. But I think it's important for people to know that. So I did want to say that to everybody, like why we are doing this and where we're going from here.
No, I think that's a great point, Sabrina. And I think to me, that is also another thing that is happening, the separation of the old and the new. This is what we're seeing. So you're seeing the jealousy from the old because the new is rising up. Another thing we're seeing is the old doesn't like the teaming up. They don't like, if you notice the old people who were commentaries, you never really saw them go on this show, that rarely, but not the new left, because it's not about a brand. It's not about just me trying to make money. It's that I know that if I team up with Convo Couch, I know if I team up with Frank Analysis, I know if we team up together, his audience, my audience, Savvy's audience, together, we're better this way. We can reach more people. But like you're saying, there are certain people who are in this strictly for the money. That's it. You ain't never heard about them going to no march. You ain't never heard about them doing no aid. You ain't never heard about them doing nothing. They got websites and wolves in their background. That's what you heard. So let me bring it back to the floor. What I do want to kind of focus on, not focus, but also talk about this divide, because I don't see it really going away. Because it's not like we're going to all of a sudden get healthcare and a living wage overnight. And it's not like all of a sudden they're going to come down to where we are overnight. So we have really the people who theorize about leftism. They like it as a theory. They want to apply this theory. And then we have those that have applied, they're what I considered applied or lived leftists, who are leftists. And this is what Black people are usually. You're leftist because of what has happened to you or your experience. Like a lot of Black people, I feel like most Black people are leftists. They just don't classify themselves, because if you ask them if they believe in Medicare for all, of course, single parent, everybody should have it. If you ask them about a living wage, of course. If you ask them about these wars, of course. If you ask them about these bombs, of course. But then you say, are you a leftist? No. So, but the point that I'm trying to make is this, is that Black people, like I said, I feel like they're leftists, but by policy only. Now, let me get back to, and I'm going to leave you with this. And this is a critique of the person that we've kind of, talked about. he's not a serious person. You get what I'm saying? So as Sabrina and some of other and Nick and some other FHL members have said, why give energy to somebody who's not serious? Like he's not serious. So you know what I mean? Like, and what I use, the phrase I use to describe him, I'm going to pass it back to the floor. I think we'll go to Afeni and then Nick for any final thoughts on this topic. But I call this person the Medea of politics. Like, I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to take that critique any further. I'm going to call him, he's the Medea of politics, and let's leave it there. He's not serious at all. And let's go to Afeni. What are your last thoughts or your thoughts on how this conversation has gone? What are your thoughts really? Because you're on the ground. You're seeing what's happening. You're entrenched in the mutual aid. What would you tell in this leftist divide? What would you tell those leftists who are more well off? If you had a chance, like to tell them, like to get to understand your perspective and the urgency, what would you tell a leftist like that?
I mean, so I just want to start with this. Like, first of all y'all need to figure out if y'all are a culture war leftist that only gives a damn about like fear mongering against Republicans and talking about Trump and Russia, or you're a class war leftist who actually gives half of a fuck about targeting the nucleus of American power and imperialism. If you do not care about actually dismantling the financial powers and the military powers of the United States of America, we have nothing to talk about. Like, I do not want to be in coalition with people that are literally trying to actively misunderstand me, number one. Number two, as a Black woman in this country, I know that, my time and my experience on this earth is a little bit different than a lot of you privileged white people. And I'm not even gonna sit up here and lie. Like, I definitely come from a place of privilege. I'm not out here destitute, but I'm a Black queer woman in America. So that's where my urgency comes from. I'm an anti-war veteran who went through the training and saw the way like the US military brainwashes people into making them fucking paid assassins for the state to just go kill civilians and protect property and equity in other places instead of actually protecting American people. Like, these are the differences. And if these are not the things that are on the forefront of your mind, if these are not the things that are on the forefront of your mind, if you're not thinking about ways to dismantle the military to fund reparations, since you're so pressed about it, then I don't want to hear nothing you have to say. Period. If you're not out here thinking about all of the irreparable ways that the Black community can be repaired, the indigenous community can be repaired by this country, if you're not thinking about all of the harms that they have gone through and listing them daily, if you can, with your hundreds of thousands of the subscribers, then I do not care to be in community with you. When you are ready to take this seriously, then let's talk about being in community. But if you are somebody that is not talking about these things, as far as I'm concerned, you are a capitalist and you're the enemy to me and you're in the way. Black capitalists, white capitalists, whatever. Black capitalists especially. You are my enemy and you are in the way. And until we actually pave a path to liberation that does not depend on your individual wealth and the individual wealth of a few other Black people, then and only then will we have a conversation. Period. Like, I have no words. Nothing.
Absolutely. And like I said, facts and fire, that was absolute fire. And you can see it in the comments. Let's bring in Nick. You kind of heard Afeni break down her position on really this left class divide. What are your thoughts? Like, how do you see it? How would you talk to this person? Like, if you're trying to get a person to understand this, go ahead.
I had conversations with people that was worried about the divide, and I kind of mentioned what I said earlier, where there's not a real divide on the left. I mean, these are people that I have fought my majority of my life. I already knew I would have liberal opposition. Now, They would get really mad. They're like, "Oh, you calling me a liberal?" Yeah. If you're not tough on U.S. imperialism, someone asked me what my definition of a leftist was, and I'm like, bro, I'm being very lenient. A lot of people got a lot of these, like, litmus tests. My litmus test is really easy, real easy. Anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist. That is the easiest litmus test to pass. And then people don't pass it. And then they get mad at me and they think I'm divisive when I call out. And I had Dr. Cornel West, the man himself. He surprised me. I didn't even think he would even go this far. He on my stream, he said Bernie Sanders was weak on imperialism. He called him out for being weak on Palestine. Do you have any idea how many people melt down at me for saying the same thing that he said? So I focus on people who are that unserious, they hear something from Dr. Cornel West, they're like, oh, he's a great, brilliant man. But then I would say the same thing he said, because like I said, he's my teacher. He probably taught me this line of thought. And I was like, yo, Bernie, AOC, and the squad of imperialists, I don't like their direction. And people would be mad at me. I'm like, Cornel West just said that. Chris Hedges just said that. So my point is, should I worry about these people? Or should I just keep converting people? Because all the time I keep telling people, oh, I used to be more liberal-minded. Now you think you give me other ways to think. I had people that was mad at me because I didn't want to vote for Joe Biden. I had people like, yo, you was right. So my goal is to get the people who mad at me to acknowledge I'm right some way down the line, whether it be next year, 2 years, 5 years. It's gonna happen if you're honest, right? Now that's my goal they eventually will admit I'm right. And when I'm wrong, I will continue to grow. We will continue to grow as a community. That's the way I think we should move forward. And there's all these people melting down, asking a lot of questions because I had Dr. Cornel West on. They're like, how you had Dr. Cornel West on? How do I have Bree on? How do I have Max Blumenthal on? It's simple. I stick to the issues. Mm-hmm. Do you think Dr. Cornel West? Do you think Brianna Joy Gray? Do you think Max Blumenthal? Do you think these people are interested in talking to me because I'm Twitter beefing all day? People see the content of my tweets and they're like, oh, I talk to that guy. That's what they don't get. That's how you build coalitions. I'm able to have a conversation with my teacher because he said he liked the work that we were talking about. So I'm going to keep talking about that work. That's my game plan. And if you don't like it, fine. Stay mad while we can continue to grow this community. That's how I always feel, and that's how it ended on my part. Back to the floor.
I think that was the only way to describe that is beautiful. I think there could be a path forward for this divide, but the path forward has to be them coming on to what we believe. Like, that's the only way forward, because if we come on to what we believe, we're just doing the same thing that already exists. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's no change, because what they believe is incrementalism. They don't say that, but if you say, let's plan for the next election, you're saying incrementalism. That's the same thing as incrementalism. So is there any other kind of thoughts here before I bring up? I'm not changing topics, but there is actually I am changing topics. We're going to move on to the infrastructure bill, but I do want to give everybody an opportunity if you had any last thoughts on this particular topic of the left versus the left topic.
I was just going to say, I think some of us that grew up a certain way, right? So like I came from a middle class family, but my parents were military, right? So had it not been for my dad joining the military, I would have not grown up in a middle class family. Mm-hmm. I just want to make that very clear. My parents grew up in Baltimore. They grew up very poor. And that is why my dad joined the military. And me and Afeni, we talked about this before, about the military. They effectively recruit in those neighborhoods, in Black and brown neighborhoods and low income, and recruit those kids. Mm-hmm. And even though I grew up in a middle class family, because I graduated during a time when the economy was crap, this was right after Bush, going into Obama, very hard to find a job. So yes, I graduated with a college degree, but I still had to work a full-time job and a part-time job. And that was just to get by. And somewhere down the line, I said, it shouldn't have to be this difficult. for anybody, regardless if you went to school or you didn't go to school. So some of this is a generational aspect as well, because I'm a millennial. In my generation, we've gone through a lot, especially like with this economy. When I think about things financially, we really, really have had to struggle. If we didn't already come from a family that was wealthy or had that wealth set up for us, those of us coming from middle class, we have a lot of student loan debt. We've struggled a lot. And I think for some of the people who are doing this, that didn't go through, they didn't have to struggle. They didn't have to fight this kind of stuff. They don't have student loan debt. They don't have to worry about any of this stuff. They don't have to worry about the healthcare system. I remember not having health insurance. I know how much it costs to pay to go to the doctor. And even now I have health insurance. I still get expensive bills. I have a $1,600 dental quote. Nothing has happened yet. And it's already $1,600.
That's crazy.
So if you don't have to go through that, you don't have those experiences, it may be really difficult for you to understand what that's like. It's easy to quote a theory. It's easy to quote something from a book. But if you never had to go through that, you really don't understand the full experience. And if you have gone through that and you do have that full experience and you're still hating on the people who are the same race as you and went through that same experience as you, well, that doesn't make any sense.
That's one thing about the black bourgeoisie that I think that's my biggest pet peeve, is that they come from being poor and it's almost part of their story. I came from being poor and now look where I am. And then you turn around and start critiquing the same people where you came from. And that's something that really, and that's why I can't stand Don Lemon and Justin, not Justin, what's the one from MSNBC with the glasses, the Island of Misfit Girl? What's his name?
Oh, Jason
Johnson. That guy, man. So anyway, and the Congressional Black Caucus. I mean, I can go on. Congressional Black Caucus is so useless. That's another conversation right there. Did you have anything else, Afeni? It felt like you had something burning on you, or no? You're just kind of just listening, taking it in.
I just wanted to say that I hate Jason Johnson, whatever his name is, so much. He is such a coon. But anyway.
Yeah, when I did my what was my STFU list, and I had the corporate media edition, and he came in at my number one slot when I did that video, because he's just absolutely disgusting. Nick, did you have anything else before we move to the next thing?
No, I'm good. We can move to the next topic.
Okay. The next topic, this was the initial topic before we kind of took a detour. I'm going to go ahead and share a video or a tweet about the infrastructure bill. And let's see what it says. And we'll comment and talk about it on the other side. Let me prep this up here. All right. So it starts out with Chuck Schumer, of course. Of course, Chuck.
I hope we can use our time in the Senate efficiently.
Tucked away in the more than 2,700 pages of the bipartisan infrastructure bill now at last on the Senate floor are some items drawing fresh scrutiny as the $1 trillion package, a key goal for President Biden, approaches a vote. One such provision steers $1 billion to the Appalachian Regional Commission. Broadband internet subscriptions in the historically disadvantaged region lag considerably behind the national average. But the commission's co-chair, a Biden appointee sworn in 3 months ago, is Gail Connolly Manchin, wife of the state's centrist Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, widely regarded as the swing vote in the evenly divided Senate.
It's just a real waste of money, and of course, it's pandering to Senator Manchin. It's trying to get him to vote for it, no question about it.
Another provision aimed at eliminating drunk and impaired driving would see the federal government adopt, within 3 years, new motor vehicle safety standards that would require all cars to have ignition systems that screen for alcohol and other substances. Still another item would create a national pilot program using volunteer drivers initially who will be tracked through dashboard devices, mobile apps, and telemetric data, so the federal government can eventually impose a user fee on all drivers based on the mileage they rack up.
The committees of jurisdiction, in my case, the Environment and Public Works Committee, particularly being ranking on transportation and infrastructure, we had.
All right, so you get the point of that video. I'm going to show you another video in a little bit. What I wanted to do was kind of give you the two perspectives. So this is obviously a more conservative perspective on the bill, and a conservative perspective may even think that the $1 trillion bill is too much, when, of course, people like us think the $1 trillion bill is like, it's laughable. It should be more like 10, 12 million dollars, or 10, 12 trillion dollars, not $1 trillion. So let's now go to, resident Democratic PR firm MSNBC for their take on the same infrastructure bill. And then we'll kind of talk about it. We want to give both sides of the duopoly the same opportunity to propagandize people, I guess. So let's play this this next video. And I think this one, MSNBC, it's him on the what's the black guy's name on that MSNBC? The old guy, forget his name. But anyway, here is that tweet. That's his name. I forget his name, but you see him on the screen there. Let me flip this over.
Michael Bennett drinks fracking fluid.
Broadband and
okay, here we go. Let's hear what he says about the infrastructure bill.
this will mean that we will have broadband all across the country and not live in a world where one group of kids has access to broadband and another group doesn't. Reverend, as you know, we've accepted the school districts over history where one group of students had access to textbooks, another group didn't have access to textbooks. Those are some of the darkest moments in the country's history, and yet we've allowed that to happen with broadband. This will mean that we will have broadband all across the country and not live in a world.
All right, so you get the point of me showing both of these videos is just to see how both sides aren't really talking about what's in this bill. So that's they're not really telling their audience what's in this bill. And it's so disgusting what MSNBC does all the time when it gets they bring up black issues and use it as an emotional way to connect whatever's going on right now. It's truly, disgusting, saying we used to live in a time when, obviously referring to black people, when, textbooks and this and that and this, and now he's bringing up this. So what are your thoughts on just how they cover the bill? I'm sure most of you know sort of like what the basic bill breakdown is about $1 trillion. That's barely got through $1 trillion when it should be more like 10 or 12 trillion. So what do you think of the infrastructure bill? What do you think how both sides, are covering it? Democrats are basically saying it's the greatest thing in the world. Republicans are basically saying there's a lot of money in there for stuff that's not needed. What is your thoughts? Let's go to Sabrina first, then Afeni, then Nick. What's your thoughts on, I think you did a deep dive video on the infrastructure bill. So that's why I'm starting with you, because I know you know a little bit more than most of us. So Sabrina, what is your thoughts? Or maybe you can kind of break it down also, break down some of the details that you're aware of the bill.
Yeah, so I went through this bill last night. It was a mouthful. There was a lot of information. It's broken up into the following categories. There's transportation, water, broadband, education, balls. I believe there's two more. I'm leaving them out. I'd have to go back to the article. Oh, climate. And the climate one, if you're going through the bill, it looks like, wow, this is a lot. This is great. This is awesome, but there are some red flags. Like the climate portion didn't say anything about fracking. And it said, we will research climate change. At this point, you don't need to research it. The research has already been done. What are you researching? What are you looking into? So just get it done. But nothing about fracking was in there, which was very concerning. The other thing too, I have to admit, I did not think this bill was going to pass in the Senate. I figured they were going to block it, just like they've blocked a lot of like legislation that has come from the House. So I was surprised that it did pass, and there were Republicans that voted for this bill as well. I believe Mitch McConnell was one of them, which makes me wonder what kind of deal Joe Biden made with them. Like, I really don't understand, but it's not enough. It's not enough that like needs to be done. And this isn't something that's going to be done like right away. It's over the course of years. But the climate thing is really concerning because one of the things I think Bernie, he tried to get this across during a debate and he got cut off by the moderator. You know how they do what they do. But one of the things that Bernie brought up was that, Black people will be affected by climate change the most, will be affected by these environmental issues. And then they cut him off and he didn't get to finish what he was saying. And now I was like, darn it. But it's very sad because when I did go through that last night, that was the shortest section. That was the smallest category out of all the other ones that was mentioned. And it's true, like Black people, we will be affected by that. A lot of us are on coast. Like, look at the cities a lot of us live in. It's already happened. I mean, here in Boston, the water it's already rising. That's why they're already talking about putting in a wall around the harbor. So it's really sad. I'm gonna send you guys the article that I went through because it breaks it down and it shows you how much is being spent for each thing.
My question, or just thinking out loud, things are falling apart because we don't want to spend money on anything. Like, nobody wants to spend adequate amounts of money on anything. So Republicans, for example, intentionally underfund things, and then they go, see, the government can't do anything. It's like for example, the DMV, for example, U.S. Postal Service. Now, that's not funded by the government, but they passed a law that intentionally inflicted pain on the U.S. Postal Service. And then they say, see, look at them, they're failing. So I just feel like this infrastructure bill has been watered down so much that it's like, any legislation that comes from the United States Congress, it's so watered down. There's so many, things, put in there to get certain votes. Like, for example, Joe Manchin's wife getting this money. Like, it's so ridiculous. And I'm going to leave this, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to Afeni. How come Joe Manchin can force all this stuff, but Bernie Sanders can't, and AOC can't, and the squad can't? Like, why is it that the people who are corporate can do these things? Because the same thing happened in the House, and why AOC is not on that committee, because that corporate Democrat was willing to say, I'm not going to vote for Nancy Pelosi. Now that person has that seat. But the left can't do that for some strange reason. So I just wanted to throw that out there before I move on. So Afeni, what is your thoughts on the infrastructure bill, or the video, or just what Sabrina has brought up?
Oh, the original infrastructure bill already wasn't enough. Like, let's just be real. It didn't do enough really to address infrastructural racism. It didn't do enough to really deeply invest in like the jobs that it could have invested in. Like, the original one wasn't enough, right? But the bipartisan version has no money for housing, schools, or buildings. It has no money for research and development and manufacturing. It has no money for home and community-based care. It has no money for clean energy tax credits. So what exactly does it have? It has all of the same things that Trump wanted in. So Trump's infrastructure bill that he was trying to push through, that big infrastructure bill he kept bragging about, that's the same exact infrastructure bill that the Republicans and the Democrats in Congress have whittled this shit down to. But I thought we was a part of the resistance. Like I thought that Joe Biden was a part of the most progressive administration of all time. MSNBC. Oh my God, it's so mind blowing. Where is it? Where's the progress? I'm confused because this is Trump's infrastructure bill. It does nothing to actually like fundamentally address climate change, because climate change is happening. And y'all don't have to do any more research about it, because guess what? 99.9% of the world's climate scientists already did all of it for you. And guess what? They all agree that climate change is happening. So at this point, we need to start talking about banning fracking. We should not be causing artificial earthquakes of the earth. Like, we should not be causing man-made earthquakes. Who came up with that idea other than some capitalist pig that just wanted to make money? Other than that. So if there are other ways for us to, number one, fuel our, energy, if there are other ways for us to, get around our country, like investing in, I don't know, high-speed rail, because every other well-developed continent has it except us. Like, we are so behind on so many things, and we keep being told that America is so exceptional. But show me the fucking exceptionalism when there are potholes all up and down the nation's capital. Show me the exceptionalism when there are 46,000 bridges in this country that are structurally unsound. Where's it at? The only thing that we are exceptional in is actually not giving a good goddamn about our citizens or about this country, actually. Only thing that they care about is the people that can put money in their pockets. Because I can promise you, all up in Northwest, where all them senators and all them live, all them roads is good up there. The farther down south you get out here, the more fucked up the infrastructure is. And I can tell you, in a lot of different cities, it's just like that. We needed a real investment in our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is over 100 years old, and y'all couldn't even get that right. What can the Democrats do? Absolutely nothing but lose. 2022 is going to be a bloodbath. Just know. Period.
Yeah, that's actually the next thing we're going to talk about is that. But Nick, did you have some words on this infrastructure bill, Nick?
So it's very important, as I always say, to analyze politics in the guise of the class war, and do not ever accept the framing coming out of the neoliberal Democrats and progressives. They love falling for it. Why would anyone praise this bill when it does not address climate change? Why would people praise this bill when the money spent on the bill should be an annual infrastructure bill? This is 10 years. What is wrong with people? Do you guys know that there was a study done where it showed that, and Finney just mentioned this. I'm glad you mentioned this, Finney. They looked at the infrastructure in places in the South, like in Alabama. And I saw it firsthand when I was in South Carolina. I was appalled when I was in a lot of these communities. It was like you was walking in I don't like this term, so I apologize, but for the lack of a better term, it's like if you're in like a destitute third world country. For the lack of a better term, I don't endorse that, but just for the lack of a better term. Because the UN, they did an investigation. They said, bro, if you look at their infrastructure, it's the same as places you call third world country. That's why I reject the concept of a third world country, because if you accept that premise, that means you're acknowledging that the United States is better when it's not. You know what I mean? Like, there are countries in that so-called third world that got higher literacy rates than us, that live longer than us. So how am I gonna call another country a third world when they have a fraction of the resources we do, but their people live better? So that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I won't use it to just because I didn't have a better term at the time. But you guys know my point. This infrastructure bill is just getting us caught up to where the world has been 30 years ago. Have you guys seen the infrastructure in Japan? Do you guys know why they don't want us to know about other countries? Japanese people mock us all the time. They're like, bro, Americans, their infrastructure is like old as hell. Like, you guys know that? Tokyo? I talked to a friend. I was a friend with a vice president of an Asian fraternity. So I talked to a lot of these people in college, and they're like, bro, people would laugh at when they look at American infrastructure. It's a joke. You guys are praising our politicians for doing the bare minimum that they should have did 20 years ago. So another point of view I want to add, and this is important as a leftist, as a socialist, as a capitalist, instead of blindly praising everything politicians do. This infrastructure bill, when I read through it, I was looking through it just now. This highlights the inefficiency of neoliberal capitalism. What do you mean, Nick? Do you guys see all the money they're spending? Look at this. Well, I'm literally looking at this article, and I'm like, they were like, we spent billions of dollars on training and research, on helping people get jobs. We spend this much. Like, bro, you can just pay people a UBI so they can go to school. When they get a UBI, they will invest into business that will stimulate the economy. Do you see the inefficiency of neoliberal capitalism? They have all these side programs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna have a program where we hire people that create a bureaucracy so people maybe will get a good job. Why not just give them a good job? Like, you guys see all the loops they jump?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out closed on accident. I'm actually mad. I'm gonna pull it up again because I want to try and give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. Like, one thing, I was just looking through this. Let's find this here. Let's see if I can share it so I can kind of break down my mindset, because this is a very important capitalist critique on this. I mean, sorry, not capitalist. Hell no. Socialist critique of this. I got all these tabs pulled up. Where am I at? Oh no, I think this is it. Sorry. So you see how they got all these things here? All this money that they're spending, that is like $12 billion for funding towards workers facing some of the greatest. Like, what are you guys talking about here? $40 billion towards career services and training for work. $40 billion? $40 billion is, you can solve homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
What do you talk like? Why they spending all this money? Like $48 billion towards worker protection and development infrastructure, including a expansion of apprenticeship with a particular emphasis on women and people of color. Like, if you had a UBI, if we had an education system that was properly invested in, you will have people that will be able to do this without these complicated infrastructure bills. You could just have actual government that will provide for the people. They can get education, they can get the job they want. And then even then, I reject the premise here, because the premise here is that you gotta go through apprenticeships. You have to jump through all these hoops to get a good paying job. My thing is, if you work full time, you should be living in poverty. You guys see what I'm saying? You guys understand the critique I'm laying out here?
Absolutely.
They spend out a ton of money to do these things and create these programs, create these bureaucracies, when you can just do it directly by giving people power. So this is just a critique of neoliberalism. I hope I came across clear here, because, like,
I think essentially you're saying this is how they water it down. Like, the money can be more effective if you give it to us directly, just like with stimulus checks. That they said that, like, in Bloomberg, I read it, and it was like, it's way more effective to give people money directly than to invest in all of these bureaucratic programs that, most of the money is going to go to all of the upper class people, the president, all those people are going to get most of the money. So I absolutely get what you're saying.
Can you put that back up? Can you?
Yeah, have a good.
You
see this right here, and I'll pass it to you, Savvy. You see this? $213 billion for creating and retrofitting over 2 million. We have housing units that are empty. Why are we spending all this money on this instead of just housing homeless people? And I hope I'm not sounding unreasonable here, but this, like, why are we doing this instead of the basics? Because I feel like when I look at this, I feel like this is going to benefit the suburbanites. You know what I mean? Like, $40 billion for investment in public housing that solves homelessness, and we already got good housing infrastructure for them. We just don't want to house them in it. You guys know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because those houses are to make money off of, Nick. What are you talking about? Those aren't houses for homeless people. But go ahead, Shabby. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, can you put that back up real quick? Because I wanted to show something to.
Yeah, put that back up there, Nick. Let's kind of look at it.
Yeah, one second.
Some of the other numbers a little more closely.
The reason I said that because if you go looking at it, and that was my first thought. I was like, bro, all this money for stuff. Like, we had access to this. But anyway, Stabby, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if you go down to research and development and you go to the last line, I just want to show people what it says there. It says $35 billion for climate research. That's it. That's all they have for climate change on there.
We just
had it. That's it. Like, the totality of everything in there. That's it. Sabrina, that's all that's in there for climate change.
That's it. And then the other thing too, where Nick had up there by housing and development, where he was talking about the public housing. You even have to be careful with that too, because how many times have I heard them say they're going to create more public housing or affordable housing units, and they end up putting condos in those places instead?
Exactly.
Instead of just upgrading the child care, why not just pay for child care?
Well, what we have to understand, and I've interjected this part into some of our conversations in the past, is that our nation is run by hundreds of corrupt lawyers. And what do lawyers go to school for? To understand how to persuade, to understand how to double talk, legalities. So when we're talking about, affordable housing, affordable for who is the question. You get what I'm saying? So what you think is affordable is basically what I'm getting at, and why the lawyer reference. What you think is affordable ain't what affordable is to me or this other person or this other person. Because like Sabrina has said, I've heard this before, money for affordable housing. And it's like, you never hear about that affordable housing after that's passed. You never hear like, oh, here it is. Because you can best believe if they really have affordable housing, they want to get pictured. They want to get some photo ops. You don't never see that, because those affordable housing never really come into fruition.
Another important point I want to lay out here, and this is what Lee Camp brilliantly just covered on the show, is, and this is why we got to have leftist criticism of this bill. And we have real kind of praising it. But anyway, sorry. But you understand this is a privatization. I always struggle to say that scam. Like, this is like, you're gonna have Wall Street that is in charge of very essential public services. Like, that's what this bill is. And
basically,
yeah. So this is not a great thing from a leftist perspective. And Lee Camp has a great video where he lays out in great detail how pretty much this is a giveaway and pretty much a power grab for the elite upper class, because a lot of these things that are being provided for us should be provided as a public good, as using like taxpayer money that's funded from the rich, that come from defunding our military, for example. But instead, it's a taxpayer funded that is giving power to Wall Street and these giant industrial complexes.
Right.
Lee Camp has a great video. I won't pass it to you guys should check that out. I watched that beforehand. It's a great outline showing just pretty much how capitalists are using this infrastructure bill to expand their power, like they always do. Last time they had a big housing project, they expanded condos. So it's like, that's why I was worried. That's why we got to reframe our conversation on this. Like, because my argument is like, we should just get this money. When I hear 1.2 trillion, like, bro, what 1.2 trillion do for the hood, bro? Like so it's like, what y'all doing? So all this stuff is helping bourgeoisie America. That's already good. Like, look in Kansas. If you go to bourgeoisie Kansas, it looks amazing. If you go to proletariat Kansas, it looks like a dump. So it's like, this money is gonna go only help them. They always use like identity politics, like, well, disenfranchised community. No, I promise you it won't.
and then
we got history to show us that. What you about to say, Abby?
And then the amounts that they come up with for the affordable housing sometimes doesn't make sense, because you have people that fall in these brackets where, let's say you're making like $25,000 a year in South Carolina. So the cost of living there is lower, but you'll have like these affordable housing units that will tell you actually make too much to live there.
Yes.
But you make too little to qualify for other apartments.
And this is the reason why they don't change the poverty level number. It's so that they can have people fall into this category, Shabby. It's intentional to have people fall into where they can't get help here and there. Because what is capitalism all about? Cutting costs. So if you can't get help here and you can't get help to your right, they're saving money. You get what I'm saying? Like, to them, it's about saving money. But go ahead. I'm sorry if I interrupt you.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, like, that's oftentimes what some people run into. So what happens is, especially a lot of younger people, what happens is this is how people end up having to live in apartments with like 4 and 5 people, because that just don't make no sense.
And then you have money where, like you pointed out, the money for research, climate change research. There's just a climate change report that just came out. Why do you need climate change research? And to your point, I forget who made the point, but to your point about like, a lot of this money is not even going to be going to anything. For example, the climate change research, who is that going to? some firm, right? That's just going to go to some firm who puts out some report. Oh, we did this research. It's really just going to pay somebody off. So all of that money could have went to go help homeless people. All that money could have been sent to the people in those areas directly. But though all that money, the 38 billion, it sounds good. Oh, that's going to climate change. I spent 38 billion on climate change. Really? Where did that money go to? It went to consultants so they can research and put out reports. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, it's to Nick's point. It really is. It's quite disgusting. And this is bipartisan. This is why are Democrats on this bipartisan thing when you run the entire thing? And I have an answer to that. Is because their entire intention is never to go too far left. They use this, bipartisan, so that is the backdrop. We can't go further than that. This is the right reason why you keep using that. And the same thing happened with Obamacare. What do we need their vote for when we have 60 votes? Why do we need bipartisanship? Why are we including their provisions when they're not getting votes? Why? It's because the Democratic Party need them to be a backstop to stop them from going too far left. That's the reason. What are your thoughts on any of that or anything else? Nick, I think was next.
And I just want to mention something here, and this is like completely off topic because we only got 10 minutes left, and I don't want to go over, but I really want to mention this. I'm going to do a breakdown on this later because this is coming out today. Pink just tweeted this an hour ago. Once again, it's completely off topic. Breaking. Less than a week after pulling 2,500 troops out of Afghanistan, the Biden administration announced today that it will send 3,000 new troops. So we got less than 10 minutes. So this is gonna be a quick rapid fire segment. We're gonna talk about this more later. Trust me, guys.
What?
But this is
say that all again. Let me make sure I heard that right. Say that all again.
We're not gonna go over time, man. Trust me.
Yeah.
We're gonna be a really quick rapid fire. But we are going to do a comprehensive segment on this. Trust me. Because guess who called this? Guess who predicted this? Once again, Pink 1 hour ago. Less than a week after pulling 2,500 troops out of Afghanistan, the Biden administration announced today it will send 3,000 new troops. Guess who called it?
I remember you, Nick. You were saying, you was like, Joe Biden is not pulling no troops out of this. Stop saying that. I remember you kept saying that. You was like,
I searched my Twitter history, and I said this countless times, and I saw progressives praising them like, bro, okay, listen, you guys, I told you guys, this is why we should vote for Biden. I knew he was good. And I was like, bro, you guys are fuck. Anyway, I'm going to get you guys' thoughts real quick. I think this is I just want to bring this up because I'm going to cover this.
So the end result is actually more troops. The end result is actually more troops than it was before.
Yeah,
You said they pulled 2,500 and then they sent 3,000. Is that what you said?
They yo-yoed again. I predicted they always do this. They do the yo-yo where they like, we're going to pull out troops. They pull out a little bit, and then there's a mission creep because now they use the reason they are doing this, and I'm going to get some more details soon because I've been reading this like only like 5 minutes. Apparently, like there's like another offensive. But this is why I tell you, like this war will never end. There's not a win condition. So now they're using the fact that their supposed sides is losing ground. They're like, see, violence is increasing. We gotta get back in there. And I told you guys, this is why I said they wasn't gonna pull out. Because I told you guys, as soon as violence escalates again, like it will, they will use that as an excuse to go back in. I covered that on my show weeks ago. Anyway, what's your guys' thoughts? We don't got a lot of time.
Well, I was gonna say, Nick, but this is why back when Biden announced that he was going to pull all the troops out come September. Remember, that was back in January, I think he announced that. This is why so many people shouldn't have gotten excited and saying, yay, this is great news. And I was like, no. Don't you remember during the Obama administration, they said they were going to pull them out? They didn't pull them out.
Like, wait and see. Let's actually see them pull out. But what's striking to me,
that comment right there, CJ, you can comment on it too. But that was what I was mentioning too. And I was telling people that, like, don't even say he's pulling out because he's not. He's privatizing the war. But anyway, back to go ahead, CJ.
But I mean, but that's the type. But this goes back to the point I said about lawyers and what do they do? Oh, we're pulling out. You're not actually, you're just privatizing it. But this is one of the things I mean. What we're ran by a bunch of lawyers, and they use these sort of tricks like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like pulling out for the average American, that means our troops are coming home. The war or whatever conflict, that's over. No, it's just being privatized. That's all. We're just going and hiring these people who already were there anyway, and now we're just going to let them do all of it. That's all. They're still doing the same work. So anyway, I think we have 5 minutes left.
wrap up. I
So
just wanted to bring
any
that
more
up.
comments on this? Because we're gonna probably touch up on this probably the next.
Trust me. Yeah, trust me. I'm
Yeah,
gonna do
yeah.
like, we got
But do you
want to
you want to say anything real quick on this before we do the last, shout outs?
This is why, like, the only thing I will say is I've seen this before. So I'm not some guy with a crystal ball. Like, I knew this would happen because we've seen this multiple times. When Barack Obama used to say, well, we got to reduce troop levels, and we got to pull up. No, and then they didn't. Then Trump said he was going to do it, and then they didn't. And then the red flag, one of the biggest red flags, this is the last point I make, is when it was like, we're going to pull out troops, and then they set the date like 6 months later. I'm like, fuck are you doing? And I said in my segment when I covered at the time, I told you guys know why they're doing that, right? They giving the media enough time to manufacture consent towards the war. So then when they pulled out, the media was running story after story after story. They're trying to get people like, oh, this is bad. And also they wanted to give time to give what happened. I want to see if I can find the tweet, because the Taliban is gaining ground, because I was reading at it now. It said Taliban takes control. I can't say, I'm bad with these names, guys, but Kandahar, the second largest city in Afghanistan. So they was waiting on something like that to happen, so they would have justification to stay in because the popularity was dying down. It's a tactic. So
it's the same tactic they use in the black community.
Yeah,
it's the same what they're doing right now. Crime rate go up. It's time to fund. It's the same tactic they use internationally that they use domestically. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'll cover this more in detail because I just saw this and I was like, we have to at least say something about this because this is it's very significant. I don't know when, but we're gonna have Roundtable breaking this down soon.
Yeah, so for our audience, we will absolutely be talking about this more. This absolutely needs more time than a few minutes. But Sabrina, I'll go to you first, and then Nick, what do you have coming up before we sign off? What do you have coming up next week? If you have anything, what do you got going on? Any announcements that you got?
Yeah, so next week on my channel, Fee from Combo Couch will be on. We're going to be talking about election integrity, because one of the things that she's been bringing up is that it doesn't really matter who we run if we don't fix the loopholes in our broken election system. So she's going to come on and talk about that.
Absolutely. And Nick, what do you got going on? Anything on the horizon? I know you just had your biggest interview, so maybe you need a little time off this week with Brother West and Brianna Joy Gray. But what do you got coming up?
Yeah, the most importantly, we have Meg. She will be on in about an hour after we go off. So that's the most important thing. Everyone who's watching this right now, check out Meg's show, because it'll be literally 1 hour after the show ends.
Right.
And what I always want to emphasize that the fact that we upload every day too. So it's Thursday. Actually, I'm actually going to probably start a Friday panel, because I think I'm sorry if it is premature, but I know Revolutionary Jargon was going to take a break a little bit. But the next thing I'm probably thinking is having Black Liberation Politics, because I know Unapologetic is going to be on my show on Tuesday. I'm still throwing that panel together, so I can't announce guests, but I usually just throw stuff together. But on Tuesday, I'm thinking I'm going to have a panel, and I'm definitely probably going to talk about Afghanistan. Also, one more thing I want to talk about is we had Dr. Kareem Patesh on last night. Like, he probably those conversations are probably my favorite. They're very substantive conversations. And we are really serious about building this international left. I talked to another very strong anti-imperialist. She's an Afro-Brazilian. She talked about building this international left as well. I had Asal Raw on the show, amazing foreign policy analyst and anti-imperialist. We're going to have a big panel, so maybe sometime next weekend, because we really want to seriously build solidarity amongst borders. But that's all I have to say. Make sure you support us on Ko-fi. That's the best way to support us if you enjoy the show. And hit the bell, because like I said, I can't emphasize enough, we upload every day. And then like Stabby has a channel. I have a channel. Meg has her podcast. So if you enjoy our content individually, check us out individually as well, because like Stabby said, we're working hard. So thank you guys for supporting us.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna reiterate what they're saying. Support us if you like this content. And I was having a conversation with Rome, and I agree. I think we need to stop calling ourselves podcasters. We're not podcasters, because we do so much more. And this is what Rome was telling me. Like, we do so much more than podcasting. Like, educating people is not the same thing as podcasting. Like, there are podcasters on YouTube. That's just not what we do. Like, that's not what we do.
I
We're
always call myself
doing.
a citizen journalist because I feel like I'm just sharing stories.
That's more of what we're doing. We're not podcasters, and I know that's a short way of just saying what we do, but that's not what we do. We're more than podcasters. We're activists. We're people in the communities actually trying to get change now and not in the future. So I want to make sure we make that distinction. If you like our content, make sure you support us. Follow us on Twitter, Fred Hampton Left. And then on TikTok, Rome is blowing up our TikTok, his videos. Make sure you follow us there. And that's at Fred Hampton Leftists, the full name with the S at the end. Instagram, too. I've been uploading some videos there. So check us out on Instagram. Same thing, Fred Hampton Leftists. So that is going to be it for this episode. Join us next week, same time for the next weekly roundtable. And I'm going to give everybody a chance to wave goodbye. Thank you very much for joining this episode. Bye-bye.